I wanted to create a video outlining some of the differences with Bluebeam 20 and Bluebeam Revu 21, the new version of Bluebeam, to understand both with licensing and without licenses, with an unlicensed version, what you can and cannot do. So first, let's talk about licensing and how these different versions are licensed. I have version 20 here, and I have version 21 also loaded. And the way you can tell the difference between these two is you can look right up here for an account login. That indicates that we're on the new 21 version. Because the way that licensing works is completely different for these two versions. Let's go back to 20 first. And with 20, your license is based on a registration of a serial number and a license key. So you register using a serial number and license key provided to you by Bluebeam, and that's how your software is licensed. You can see also when I'm on this pull-down menu that there is a view mode and a markup mode. So users who were on a network license could switch to view mode and relinquish that license back to the server so someone else could use it. With the new version, all of that is gone. So the registration is gone. The view mode and the markup mode are both missing as well. And you'll see why here in a second. Because now we're going to switch to the new software. And really everything is based on your account login. So your Bluebeam account, which is independent from your studio account, or at least it can be if you want to. Your Bluebeam account is what is registered to a Bluebeam subscription. So now with the subscription model of Bluebeam, you're not paying for a single user license in the sense that you buy the license and it gives you a registration key. What you're paying for is an account that is licensed, which means now this account I can log in on up to 5 different machines, essentially tablets, laptops, desktops. And with this account login, I have a license to utilize Bluebeam. So in the sense of a user maybe works from home, they can log in at home using their account, they can log in at work using their account, they can have an iPad that uses the same account. So in that sense, it's a little bit better, but it's just different essentially versus a license key. Now you'll notice this Bluebeam account, and I have Studio active here as well. The Studio account can be different. So you can log in with a different Studio account, your different credentials for Studio that can be different from an account. So if you happen to have multiple Studio accounts, you can use that Studio account to log in, and you can have it be independent from your Bluebeam account. It doesn't have to be, they can be the exact same account, but they can also be different. So that's a big difference in the new version. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. And once I log in, you can see up here a couple things have changed with the new 21 version. So you can see that even though my account displays one email address, my studio login is actually a different email address. You can see the little dot there. So it's a different studio login versus my account. So I could log out and log in with another account if I wanted to. But I just wanted to talk about that because that's really one of the big differences in 21 is that you have an account now that could also be your studio account or it doesn't have to be. And then with that account, you tie it to a subscription license. So for example, if I went to the Bluebeam Download Center, I see Revu 21. And if I go a little further down, I can still download Revu 20. So this is going to be important when we talk about an unlicensed version. Just note that at this point, you can still download the older 20 version and the newer 21 version. And as I was mentioning with Revu 21, the pricing model has changed. It's an annual subscription model. So for a complete version or a core version, you're going to need one of these two. The basics is pretty basic and it doesn't do a lot. For one of these two, you're looking at an annual $300 or annual $400 subscription fee instead of what they used to do, which was you pay $500 or $600 and then you pay a maintenance fee of about $100 a year. So this is how they've changed the pricing. This is what's new in 21 as far as pricing. But let's come back and let's talk about using a license or not using a license, because what many of you already know is that you can use Bluebeam to perform design review without having a license. I will say that again, you do not need a license to review drawings inside of a session. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll start first though, showing you licensed versions. And you can see I have joined a session here. I'll open up my drawing for the session. This again is 21. I have my tools here that I can use, my call out, my text box, my cloud plus call out, my regular cloud, and then my note dimension. And these are going to be important because we're going to see how these change when this gets unlicensed. And then I have an additional tool set down here, which just looks kind of the same, but we're going to see how it changes again when the software is unlicensed. This one is a different color blue, even though it's a little hard to tell. This bottom one has a regular blue color. This top one up here has the dark blue color, and that's going to be important as well when we're talking about an unlicensed version of the software. For those of you who aren't familiar with these tools, they're pretty self-explanatory. The note dimension is one that not everyone uses. The way you use a note dimension is you can take a dimension across something and add a note to it. So minimum 20 feet or something to that effect, right? I can add a note specific to a dimension so that it looks something like this. If you're doing ADA restrictions and you need to have clearances, that's really handy. The cloud also I'll show, because people are probably familiar with the cloud. It just creates essentially a cloud. And then down in the markups list, I could, if I wanted to, come in and I could type a comment in associated with that cloud. But that comment that I add, it doesn't put it on the screen, right? So it's still just a cloud, even though the comment has been added down here. Whereas the Cloud Plus tool allows you to create a cloud, and then from that cloud, you have a call out on top of it. So you can see here that I can add in a cloud plus a comment. What we're going to do next is we're going to come back to the older 20 version of Bluebeam. Again, I can tell the difference because I don't see that. I'm going to open up my session, and I have the same set of tools here, exact same set. So again, I can open the document. I can come in. Obviously, if I have a license on both of these active right now, I can add comments, no problem. So both of these, what I'm showing you is a licensed version. This is what you can do with license. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the license from both of these versions of the software, and then I'm going to show you what you can and cannot do without a license. And let me just show you when you unregister version 20, what it does, because an unlicensed version of 20 acts a little bit different than 21. So you remember I said that there's a view mode and a markup mode here. I'm going to go ahead and unregister my software here. And when I unregister it, what's going to happen is it's going to go into this view mode. And this is what confuses a lot of people as well, because they think, oh, I'm unlicensed. What I want to try to do is get back to markup mode. But what you actually want to do is just get into a view mode that looks like where you were before. So if I click on this button down here, this gets me out of that full screen mode that I'm in, because it automatically switches and it again, confuses people. And you see it takes me back to the exact same view that I had. So remember, when you're not using a license, you're not trying to get back to markup mode. You're just trying to stay in view mode and stay in something that looks like this. So you can see right now, I do not have a license active on here. And really, not much has changed. Not much looks different. Going through these tools, I can still use the call out tool. I can still use the text box tool. I can still create my cloud plus call out. All of these tools still work. Down looking at my other menu down here, my other tool set, you can see I have somewhere I filled it in with different colors. So you can see what that looks like here. You can see that is still active. There's no real restriction on the colors of the tools, on what tools you can use, because again, I'm in version 20 right now. And in version 20, when I do not have a license and I am part of a session, so when I've joined a session, I still have access to all of these tools. Now, if I was to just open that same document outside of a session, so you can see here I've opened it from my C drive here versus opening it from a session here, and I can tell it's a session because of the icon, really, that matches the icon here. So this is a session drawing, and remember I said I can use all these tools. If I have a drawing open from my C drive and I try to use these tools, nothing happens. It does not work. And that's what you can do with an unlicensed version, is you can have users have an unlicensed version, and as long as they're in a session, as long as they're reviewing session documents, they still have the full functionality to use the tools, to come through here and look at the markups, edit comments, add comments. They can utilize the status menu. Everything essentially works just like it would if you had a license. And that's because I'm pulling a document from a session. That's the difference. My document that I open from my C drive, you can see I cannot add anything. I can't do pretty much anything. I don't even have a pull down menu with options for some of this stuff. Most of it is going to be basically grayed out for me of what I can actually do because I don't have a license. So the Bluebeam session is what allows you to use the software unlicensed and still be able to mark up, add comments, and do a few things. So there are obviously things that you can't do necessarily. What you may notice here is the button to extract comments, which is usually right around here. That button is missing versus a licensed version. You can't obviously add documents into a session, even if you had permission to do that. You couldn't do that because you don't have a license. You can't basically change any session settings. So that's the older version of Bluebeam. That's Bluebeam 20 version. Let's now look at the 21 version and what you can and can't do without a license. So again, right now, when I switch to 21, you see that I still have my license active. I still have all of these tools active. I can use any one of these tools that I want to add in a call out or a comment or anything else. Everything is working just as it should, again, because I have an active license. Now let's take away that license and let's see the difference, even when you're in a session, as to what you can and can't do. So I have changed my account login up here at the top. I've changed it to one that does not have a subscription tied to it. It's just a regular Bluebeam login. I'm still using the same login here to get into Studio, but it doesn't matter. I'm unlicensed at this point. So again, I am using version 21 without a license. And you already start to notice things happening over here. We'll get to that in just a second, but let's go ahead and go to the session and open up the document. So that can still happen no problem. I can still join the session. I can still open the documents. Here are the comments that were added earlier when the licensed person, me, was there. I can still edit those comments, but what I can't do anymore is use certain tools over here on the left-hand side. So you'll notice my call out still works. I can still add a comment. Again, I don't have a license, but I can still join this session. And because I'm in this session, I can still add a comment. But the reason that it's working and the reason that you see this call out down here is not working is because what Bluebeam has done in the new 21 version is it has limited the colors you can use when you're adding a markup comment. This particular call out that I have happens to be, if I click on it, dark blue. Now I don't even get to see the colors anymore. You can see I only have two choices, dark blue or red right here. So I don't even get the full color palette anymore when I click on these colors. All I get are these colors, dark blue or red. Whereas this one down here, you see this particular one that I've clicked on here. Again, unless I change it to be dark blue, it's just gonna not even respond, essentially. It's not even gonna give me an option to do anything with it. So you see when I click on this, essentially it's as if I'm just clicking on nothing, because these have just been completely removed from an option to be used as a tool because I don't have a license in version 21. I can still join a session. I can still make markups as long as my markup color is dark blue or red. But you'll also notice one other thing, and that is some tools have even been removed. So if I go back to version 20 for 1 second here, and I come up to, and again, this is still unlicensed version 20. You see I'm in view mode right now. And I come to markup, you can see I still have all these tools. I still have all these choices. Again, it's because I'm in a session, and because I'm in the session, I still can use the tools on a session document. They're all still available for me. If I was to switch to this document from my C drive, come up here to tools, you see that nothing is available for me. Let's come back to version 21 again. In version 21, even with a session document open, my tools are much more limited now. You see that Bluebeam in version 21 has taken away a lot of the tools that can be used. And most notably, the tool that is used quite a bit is the Cloud Plus tool, and that one has been removed. In addition, if I come over here and try to take dimensions, all the dimension tools have been removed as well. Whereas in version 20, the older version, they're still available. So it's important to note that if I installed unlicensed copy of Bluebeam and I go to a session and I open a session drawing, I still have the ability to add comments. But in 21, in Revu 21, the new version, I am much more limited in the comments I can make. I can still use the text box tool. I can still use the call out tool, as you see here. I can still use the cloud tool, but I can no longer use this tool right here, which is the one that's unsupported. It's essentially wiped out for me. I can no longer use the Cloud Plus tool. I think that's important for people upgrading to realize that if you are using an unlicensed copy, you are more limited in what you can and cannot do. And Bluebeam refers to these as specialty markups, these Cloud Plus as specialty markups. So when you're going back and you're looking at these different versions, you can see, for example, the basics version does not include the specialty markups. That's why I said it's probably not really useful for drawing review. You're going to have to go with some of the core or complete versions that have these specialty markups for your PDFs. So let's now switch and take a look at some of the cloud components that are new in Bluebeam 21. Now, I'm not going to go into exactly what Bluebeam Cloud is, but it's part of the new 21 version. So if you look at these and I scroll down, you can see all of them include Bluebeam Cloud, but the two higher versions, Core and Complete, include the Punch, RFIs, and submittals. So understand, first of all, that Bluebeam Cloud is not meant to replace a session. It's not meant for design review. It could theoretically be used for design review, but it won't work very well in comparison to what you can do with the software installed on your computer. So just understand that. That's probably the first big thing that people think about when they see Bluebeam Cloud. It means, oh, they've just moved the session into the cloud. Well, no, they didn't, but it in some ways acts like that. If I open up a drawing here, and again, with a license, I publish a drawing, and as far as part of a set, and now if I go into that drawing, you can see that I can import tools, and when I import those tools, you see I can use some of those tools. Now it's pretty limited into what you can actually do here. The tools that work are the Cloud Plus, the call out, and the other cloud. But just note that if I add a cloud here, it's not considered a comment. It's considered a shape. So you see that cloud I just created, that's considered a shape versus a comment. So really, you're sort of limited to your text box, your call out, and your Cloud Plus as your commenting tools. But again, as I mentioned, this is really not meant to replace design review. The real purpose of this is for field review in construction. So when we're talking about things like punch list items or RFI items, those can be added onto a drawing set and viewed on an iPad out in the field. That's really the purpose of Bluebeam Cloud. Now, talking about what you can and can't do when you have a license. Right now, I have a license of Revu 21 that I'm using to, again, come back and create this project, publish these drawings. And again, if I had additional documents, I could add those pages in as well. And you can see all the, again, the punch items as well. You can see the RFI items. And finally, you can see any submittal items. So all of these, the idea here is in construction, you can use Bluebeam Cloud to manage submittals, RFIs, and you can tie them to an actual drawing set here. So I can tie it into my drawing set so I can come in to my drawing set and I can look at where this punch item is right here and I can see the information associated with it. So again, all of that can be done, creation of this stuff, everything else is done using a licensed version. Without a license, give me a second, let me switch. So I've logged in now as a different user, and you can see up at the top, it reads my permission level is limited to viewer. I added this user as an admin on this particular project. It still only has viewer permissions because the user who logged into Bluebeam Cloud does not have a subscription license. So without a subscription license, again, this is kind of why it can't really be used for design review. I can come in here and I can still see everything. Again, as a viewer, I can see everything that's been done, but I can't do anything. You see, like over here, I don't even have the option to add my markup tools or have any call out tools or anything. It's not even shown to me. I can see the markups and comments that have already been made. So I can see any markups that were added already. I could respond to them if I wanted to, but other than that, I can't add anything. I can't really edit anything. I can only just kind of see it in here. So if I don't have a license and I'm trying to use Bluebeam Cloud, essentially all it does for me is it gives me the ability to view drawings. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing because, again, I could be on an iPad out in the field and I want to look at the drawing, and I could come and I could look at that drawing, look at the punch list item that's called out for me, zoom in if I need to get in, look at the file. All of that is available for me. But again, moving through this drawing set is the only thing I can do. I can't add anything. I can't really edit anything. I can only respond to what's already been added. So understand that with Bluebeam Cloud, if you don't have a license, you're very limited. You're only really essentially a viewer, and that's all you can essentially do. So that concludes this video. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of what you can and cannot do with and without a license using Bluebeam version 20 and version 21. Thank you.